Okay, so for the last chapter in this book,
Hmm.
it was a lot about review and it talked a lot about what we had been talking about before. One thing that I liked about this chapter compared to our last critical discussion is that they had a couple of PE teachers or people like in the PE field in some manner talk about their experiences. And I
Hmm.
like that a lot more with the meaningful PE because I feel like I'm a person that learns more from like experiences. So when they talked about like doing like the social dance or
Hmm.
the scooters or doing the cross country, I liked that more because they told us like how they started it and like what they saw and how they like moved on from that and like how they decided to make that more meaningful. And I
Hmm.
liked that more than kind of like the more fact based that the last
Idea.
chapters were.
Yeah. Um, as they did give us more of like you said, from like real people and not
Mm-hmm.
just stats. Um, yeah, like you said, on this chapter is more about getting self. Because I seen on here how, well, I was gonna say this at the end, but on the last page of, yep, please. On the last page of 114,
Mm-hmm.
um, it basically was just saying how that the teachers and like getting experience from the other people is not going to be perfect because everybody has different ways of teaching. And I love how they explained that at the end. By everything is not going to be perfect, and by
Right.
going in with your own idea and trying to make it work the correct way, that you will get some type of outcome. And every year that you should have a different outcome, and it should not be the
Mm-hmm.
same outcome. So that's what I kind of liked about when I read the end of the book,
Yeah, I think
that
that I
last
had
part.
something. I think I have something highlighted back there, but I did like that too, where they talked about like, but also like meaningfulness is different to
Mm-hmm.
everyone and to every
I,
student, so it can change from year to year, you know, depending on what your students that year need and what like experiences they've had before. Because like in like the social dance one, it or the dance unit, it talked about I find great joy in teaching social dance to students. However, I am aware that many students enter this unit with negative previous experiences. So, and
yeah,
I feel like that
because
happens a lot, especially with like dance and gymnastics, is that a lot of students are like, I do not want to do that. But I like that she placed meaningfulness on it by letting them choose like kind of a genre of dance and also relating it to, you know, although you might not go be a competitive national champion dancer, you still, you know, like you dance at weddings or at
yeah,
cookouts or birthday parties, you know, like you at will at some point be in a scenario where you
you
might
might
have an
just have to
opportunity to
dance.
dance. And
Yeah,
like it also talked about adults not wanting to
yeah, how
or
they
like
have different type of social anxiety, or they might think
right,
people might
right.
be judging them. I
Yes,
see
because
that.
they weren't taught anything and they
How?
didn't. And I think that's important to like let the students know too is that although you can't really stop all students from like judging each other, is that this is a learning environment and you should be able to
Have open
start,
minded,
yeah,
basically.
right. And also like you might start as a mediocre dancer, but that doesn't mean, you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean you can't be
Yeah.
successful in the unit. Because like me, when I was in school, I don't do good with like manipulative skills, like
Hmm.
basketball and things like that. I'm
Yeah.
not really good at those, but I still like I tried, even though
Right.
I knew I'm not gonna make this basket. It's not happening.
And it was like you were saying, this is it said on page 104, it said, I noticed how
Mhm.
students share common likes in many responses. Many responses involve experiences of social anxiety, comparison and self images, lack of quality instruction, lack of meaningful and lack of safe learning environment, provided by the teachers. And Have we ever touched it? How students feel about like they think that they don't get a good experience by the teacher.
I think that we've talked about it a little bit, like especially with you, like we bring this up all the time, but like your
Yeah,
PE experience,
yeah.
like I don't know, like your PE teacher probably didn't give you the opportunity to like
I'm
grade
saying about
them or whatever, but
like how I read that. I feel like a safe learning experiment. I mean, environment. I feel
mm,
like with that, it was like saying like a bad type of teacher, not just because like we had teachers, but I feel like you know how you got some mean PE teachers where it's just like do this if you don't do
mhm,
this. Like I feel like that's what they're trying to say,
yeah,
but
for
it
sure.
might be different. I don't know.
And something else that I think can be good with that too is that I like that she said that she gave them modifications and various levels of challenge to choose from,
Hmm.
because that gives them that autonomy while also like staying on track, staying on this is our lesson, but you can
Yeah.
choose from these things. I think that gives them like a little bit more ease that they got to make a decision for themselves
Yeah.
versus it just being like thrown on them and like this is what you're doing, go do it.
So how do you feel about because it was saying that they gave the students different opportunities to pick their own groups. How do you feel about picking groups?
Well, I highlighted something about that too because it's so because like in the book it says that like
Yeah.
that's fine, but like Miss Boats
In
tells us all
class,
the
yeah,
time
in
we're always
class,
taught do not let them pick
not
their
pick their
groups. And I
groups.
think somewhere else I read like, oh, I think like in the cross country one they got to pick a running buddy, but like
Hmm.
we said, like we're always taught do not let them pick their partners, do not let them pick their groups.
Exactly.
You need to pick their groups. So I
So it's
do
like
think that
really
yeah,
back
and
and
I think
forth.
that that might just be like more like a personal teacher
Thing.
preference. Like, how do you think your students will do? Like, do you think
Yeah.
you let your students are all the popular kids going to go together, or will
And
they
then
tend
all the
to like have a good mix?
yeah, I feel you on that. Cause even though I feel like Miss Bose kind of do that in class too. Like when we do group projects and group work, she be like, "Okay, I'm gonna put you two together," and then first she'll say, "Okay, you guys gonna get in group," and then so we'll be already having in our mind, "Okay, I'm gonna go with Hannah because I always go with Hannah,"
Yeah, well,
or
and
be
like
like,
like that's like this past week when she was gonna put us in, when she was like, okay, we're gonna do a group project. I was like, Kiana, Ariana.
"So
I was like, those
I
are my
literally
two I'm
had that in
going
my
with.
head," and then she was like, "Okay, I'm putting you in groups," and then turned around and said, "Okay, y'all two together, y'all two together." I was
Yeah.
like. I felt like I was in middle school, like elementary or something, when she be said. I'd be like, dang it, I already had my group picked out. But she
Yeah.
already come back and picked out, I'd be like, but
And
I kind of
while
understand.
right, because while I'm like, I totally get like me, you, and Ariana, like we're most likely always gonna kind of group together and like buddy together. I do think that sometimes it's good to like
Break
get
out
with other
because
people to kind of see like their perspective as well, and you
well,
also kind of get that perspective of the other students,
for
like
real. Because
if
sometimes
no
I'd be like,
them or
I don't think I'd be like, sometimes I'd be like, are we on the same page?
yeah.
We're not on the same page, but okay.
Right, right, right.
Or
So
half of
like
the time,
even
like,
even now as adults, we're
yeah,
still trying to like figure out that social aspect
yeah.
of everything.
That's everywhere. That's just not even in physical education room, I mean
Mhm.
classroom, PE class, that's work. Anywhere you go, that's
Right.
everywhere. Everybody's still trying to figure out where to go, who to pick, what to
Yeah.
do. So,
Which, and I think that that's why, like, and that's other things that I think they try to
mhm.
like incorporate within like the meaningful PE is that you, and I think they talked something about this, but I don't really remember exactly where it was. But I think they said something about like you're always going to have like to work with other people, and
Mhm.
like like when you go out in the world you're going to have roommates or coworkers or whatever, so like you need to have that social interaction and
Yeah.
learn to work with people that do think differently or like just operate differently than you do.
And that most definitely starts off in the classroom and in PE. So
Right,
it has
because
to
like they
start
need
from
to learn
somewhere.
that like as well as everything else.
Anything else. Yeah, most definitely.
Mm-hmm. So, and then like, because I have highlighted, if teachers know what experiences their students identify as meaningful, they can begin to plan accordingly. And
Yeah.
so I think that that can also go with, if you know that like the social interaction is meaningful to them, because
Mhm.
they want to go to school and they want to chat with their friends and be with their buds. So if you can use that to kind of separate them and get them out there more with
Out there.
other people that they wouldn't like usually
Be with.
choose from, because I do have this highlighted, that when they were doing the what is it? It's not the skateboarding, it's the scooters, that for social interaction, one of the things they learned is that they need to take turns and share equipment, and that encourages personal responsibility, because once again, the taking turns is a social interaction thing where, it's not always going to be your turn to speak or to do whatever.
Mm-hmm. It was something I was going to say. I literally can't find it. Ugh. Um, I was going to say something about how do you feel about I can't find it.
Well, here, I'll ask you this question, only because it's highlighted
Okay,
on the
ask
next
me a
page, so I
question. It
see it.
probably come back.
Okay, so I have this highlighted. How many meaningful experience are okay? So it talked about Joe, and that Joe loves to hike, and he loves to go out and play these games, and like he's a super active adult. So how many meaningful experiences are needed for students to, like Joe, approach these environments with a sense of excitement and joy and adventure rather than dread and fear? And they talk about how there's not really like a number that they would put on
Yeah.
it. But for me, when I read that before like continuing, my first thought was one.
One.
Because I feel like one meaningful experience could change everything. Like obviously it's not gonna like, but like you build off of that.
I was
Like,
just gonna
I feel
say, 'cause-
like but like I said, like, and that's fine. Like I
yeah,
want to hear your opinion too, but for me, like the first thing I thought was one. Like if you go to a class and like that day you're like, I really learned something, I took something from that, then I feel like
yeah, okay.
you go to class the next time, like, what am I going to learn today, what am I going to build on today? And so I feel like sometimes you just need like that one good class, that
Time.
one good like
Okay,
event or whatever that you can really build off of.
okay, you might be right. You might be right.
So, but like I said,
Because
I want to hear your
okay, I'm
opinion
gonna
too.
put a
That was just like
negative.
my one.
I'm gonna put a negative experience on that. Okay, so if you say that you only need one good time to like have, a good meaningful or something of that, and you like, okay, great. When I go back, I know what to do, how to do it. I wanna learn you more out there. You wanna grab it, want it. Okay, so this is experience. Okay, I'm gonna put a negative experience on it.
Mm-hmm.
What if you have a bad turnout?
Mm-hmm. I feel
Because
like
I'll say,
that can be
because
the same.
that bad
Unfortunately,
turnout.
the
Okay,
same.
I experienced a bad turnout
Mm-hmm.
on one thing that I felt like I knew I was gonna go in and
Mm-hmm.
do good on, and during the process, I did not do good.
Yeah.
And then in like during the interview, I literally was beating myself up because I was like, this is not me. Like I know this is not me. So now after the interview, I do look at things differently now. When I go to like if I ever do have another interview or something else
Mm-hmm.
important, I look at it so differently now because I know next time I want to go in with a better mindset. I want to
Right.
go in prepared. I want to have all my I mean, you can always be prepared, but never just know everything.
Everything that's gonna
But
happen.
yeah, so I would like to say that I want to go in knowing the procedures and concussions of
Mm-hmm.
everything I'm going to say and everything. I want everything to line up, and I want to answer that. I want to answer every interview question fully and not partially. That's
Right.
that's what it is.
Right.
And I
And
have
that's
learned
I
from
think
that
that like
negative experience.
right, like even a negative experience I think can be meaningful in that
Yeah.
way. Like after that you were like, I'm gonna be prepared from here on. So I do think
Yes.
that like it can go, a positive experience can be meaningful. and a negative
And a
experience
negative.
can be meaningful if you're willing to
The
look for the
change.
meaningfulness like in it. You know, if that makes sense.
Yes, this makes sense a lot.
So, but I like that. And then one more thing that I had, I think this might have been one of my last highlights. It was okay. So it says by committing to a vision of meaningful experiences for learners in PE and sport, practitioners take on a student-centered approach that promotes opportunities for students to find delight and or the joy of movement in PE and sports settings. And I think that is kind of can be like what's different between meaningful PE and like the PE that we grew up with is that they focus a lot on what are my students gaining from this? How can I make this better? What do my students need? Instead of just, these are our standards. This is what we're doing. We're going to come in here and we're going to knock this out. And
I
you're
don't
going to move on.
understand that. I don't understand how they go by standards, because I feel like you can't put standards on everything by how a child learns or how a child gain the material that they need. I don't get that, because like we'll be in Miss Boat's class and we go over and she be like, what are the Tennessee standards? I'd be like, I really want to say, like, how can you go by standards? But I understand everything has standards, or everybody
Right.
has some type of way it should be the ways you learning, but I don't get that. I hate that we have standards or have to go by some type of rules just to gain materials. So
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, and like Jimmy said, I don't know if you remember in our last class, is that
yeah,
he did say that he feels like a lot of standards leave a lot of wiggle room.
they
So,
do.
and I think that is helpful is,
Mhm.
for teachers to be like, my student needs to learn how to skip before kindergarten's over. But, like so like they do have to like do that, but there's still like room for you
To move around
to
and try to,
like
yeah,
create your own like
lesson plan or plan for
experiences
it.
and right. So do you think you have anything else, or
That's
is that the
all.
is that the end of our last critical discussion?
I think it is.
All right.